A significant update on the silver market and gold market. What happened to gold 10 times over, or maybe even more? We have a massive week coming up with the United States Federal Reserve. They will impact the price of silver and gold like nothing else. We're going to cover that. We're going to talk briefly about Home Depot, and you'll understand what that means a little bit later on. And will the price of silver explode in 2024? And are you overpaying for your silver by maybe 10%? It might depend on what state you live in. But we're going to talk about all of this with one of the most interesting characters in the silver and gold arena, an expert in my mind, the one and only Coin Chop Chris.
Ron, please don't call me an expert. I'm just a human like everybody else. But I like to be back. I love to be back with you in the basement, Ron. To talk to your viewers. If everybody can just please like, share, and subscribe, share this out everywhere. Let's get the word out, and let's get more people in the basement.
And let's recognize that person that's with us right now, our viewer. We do appreciate you, and we love the fact that you're a basement dweller here with Coin Shop Chris and I. But Chris, question for you. It's all over Twitter. Have you seen the news about gold? People are saying that gold closed on a weekly basis above $2,000 per ounce, and I'm reading for the last 10 weeks. I dug in myself, and it looked like almost 12 or 10 out of 12 weeks on Yahoo Finance, but gold has been holding above $2,000. What do you think's going on?
I think is other countries are stockpiling gold, Ron. That has a lot to do with it. The central banks are stockpiling it still. And we wonder why, what is really going on, Ron. Why is most major countries telling their people to buy silver and gold, and U.S. and Canada are not saying a gosh darn thing about it to their population? I wonder why, Ron.
I don't
I
know. I have no
you know
clue why the world's central banks, the most sophisticated financial institutions in the world, why the world central banks, the insiders in the financial and monetary system, I have no idea why they would want to be buying gold. Why, over the last couple of years, they've bought more gold than they bought during the last 4 decades combined. I don't know, Chris. It must just be a
well,
coincidence.
I'll give you a reason. Fiat currencies going in the toilet. That's where it's going, Ron. It's paper. It's unicorn fiat dust, as you like to call it, and I like to call it too. Fiat currencies are a dying breed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, gold we know is doing very well, but silver, who is silver poised for a price explosion? One thing we do know right now about silver, Chris, is it takes a lot of silver to trade for 1 ounce of gold. Is that true?
Well, right now the ratio is 88.13, Ron. So, I mean, yes, silver is due for a pounce. At what point in time is it going to happen this year? I think it will. Are we going to get back to 50 to 1 this year? I don't think we're going to get that close. I'm looking probably at about a 62-61 ratio by the end of the year. We just have to wait and see. And it's
So
going to
you,
catch a lot of people off guard, Ron. And it's going to be, I still say this is the best time to stack right now, especially silver at this time, because it's so cheap. They're giving it away.
so let's play a quick game of make believe, Chris. I call you at the coin shop and you answer and you're friendly and jovial as usual and I say, "Hey, Mr. Coin Shop Chris, I want to convert some silver into gold." Are you telling me that I would have to take 4 tubes of American Silver Eagles, each of which have 20 coins each in them, and another 8 coins, and then I would have to saw off like what 13% of one more coin just to come in to trade you that 88.13 American Silver Eagles for 1 ounce of gold?
Well, I wouldn't sell off anything. I mean, you would probably want to bring in at least 89. I'll give you the cash difference back. But there's going to be a little bit of a spread there. We're going to do our sale, then we're going to do a purchase.
Ah,
So there's gonna be
okay.
a little bit more of a spread there. Anyways, it's gonna be like 20, $25 extra to complete the
Yeah.
sale. Anyways,
You know what? You bring up a great point. It really probably would take 90 ounces of silver to get that 1 ounce of gold. You know what's interesting too, and you touched on this historically, like in the last number of decades, the silver to gold ratio has averaged more around 50 to 1, like you said. But if you broaden your scope a little bit, it gets even more interesting because over longer periods of time, you see the silver to gold ratio closer to like 20, 16. I think geologically, when they were setting up some of the bimetallic monetary systems in the past, they would do 16 to 1. And it comes out of the ground for each 1 ounce of gold that's mined every year. There's only 7 ounces of silver. It's just ridiculous, Chris. My blood pressure's going up.
and we have to remember, silver is used in every aspect of the world. It used in every industry. So why? How is this? Really, silver is more useful than gold. Gold is for really big purchases, for banks and stuff like that. But silver, it's in our medicine. It's in everything we use, Ron. It's in your cell phone. It's in your computer. Why is it silver at a higher price now? I cannot figure out. And they claim we have a silver shortage.
Yep,
I mean,
yep, yep, yep.
their
Well,
words, not mine.
and I heard somebody say the other day, which I also thought was interesting. And honestly, I've not dug into the data, but basically, all the silver that's being mined now, like in current years, is pretty much being absorbed by industry, by the electronics industry, by the solar industry, by the defense industry. And we don't even know how much silver the defense industry really uses on an annual basis because a lot of that information is classified. So if you think about the fact that every ounce of silver coming out of the ground is being consumed, anything that's demanded by investors, right, is kind of gravy on top, and at this point being absorbed by the current above ground surplus that we have, but that can't last forever. And what makes it even more egregious is the fact that that supply coming from the miners is going down, 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 down every year. We hear about silver mines shutting down. We don't hear about many new silver mines coming online. So the supply is going down, and all we hear about is demand going up. At some point, the price will reflect that reality.
Absolutely, Ron. And another point is, most silver is a byproduct. They're searching for other metals too. So I
Yep.
mean, it's not cost effective. Oil shooting up again. It's not cost effective to really build a new silver mine. And
Oh
and
no.
like you said in your previous videos, Ron, it's going to take 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years before the full line production gets going. And you already have millions of dollars into this, and you really don't know what you're going to get out of the ground at that point. You have
No,
an idea.
the reality is it's becoming more cost effective to close down silver mines, and we're hearing more and more about that. Companies making business decisions that, unfortunately, because the price of silver has been suppressed artificially low for so long, that companies are having to shut down silver mines. Fortuna Silver, our sponsor, has a silver mine that they've run in Mexico for many years, and they're being forced to basically shut it down at the end of the year because it's not cost effective. Now they've pivoted and are now producing much more gold, and the company's in incredible financial shape. Their production numbers are going up and up. But if you just zoom in on their one silver mine in Mexico, it's becoming very difficult to run a silver mine in Mexico, and you're hearing more and more companies making a business decision that they don't want to make. They don't want to impact the communities. They want these silver mines to be open. The world needs the silver, but for the miners to be able to do it, they need the price to be much higher.
Absolutely. And at what breaking point is that going to happen, Ron? That is the question nobody knows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's an interesting scenario that's unfolding. Uh, this week we have a big decision coming from the Fed. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
The big decision is going to be another uh, I don't even want to say that word. So it's gonna be another clown show, Ron. They're not gonna do a gosh darn thing. They're gonna stay rates at they're not gonna change rates again. And it's gonna they have two decisions: let the banks fail, drop rates, let inflation rise. And I think they want to go after the banks. I think they're trying to maintain inflation right now, and and it's not working because everything's still going up slowly but
Yeah.
surely. We know every time you go to the grocery store, I go to the grocery store, your viewers go to the grocery store, we've seen prices rising still.
Yeah, we're living in a fantasy world. We're living in a very synthetic economy. The Fed is really truly is a clown show, right? Like they say one thing, everything is kind of calculated about how it's gonna, it's it makes me mad because if you think about this, Chris, I don't even want to talk about the Fed because nothing's gonna, the Fed, it makes me sick. But think about this. If we were still on the gold standard and like our money was tethered to gold, tethered to silver, right? Based on those things, all this Fed smoke and mirrors and manipulation and really like I said, synthetic, it wouldn't exist. We would have real money that we know is worth a certain amount and will be worth a certain amount in the future. Instead, now we live in this make believe fantasy world. And you know what? That's exactly what the Chinese, that's exactly what the Russians, that's exactly what the Saudis, that's exactly what all these BRICS countries and all are all saying. They're like, we're kind of like fed up with your fantasy financial system, and those countries are moving more toward gold and silver. I went off on a tangent. I apologize. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Coin
No,
Shop Chris?
but you make a good point, Ron. Talk about China for a minute. Now, China don't have to fire one missile towards us at all. All they have to do, Ron, is shut everything down they send to us. The United States will be devastated. There'll be no more small appliances. There will be no more big appliances. There'll be no more nothing at your local Walmart, Ron. Because
Yeah.
Walmart buys everything from China. Your cheap furniture you can buy at Walmart, your mirrors, whatever, your home goods, all that stuff comes from China. And whatever's in your warehouses now, these store warehouses or on the shelf, that's it. All
Yeah.
China has to say, give us the middle finger on really, and say, we're done. We're not shipping you nothing.
Yeah, and Chris, wow! Think about this. Think about this idea. Because I was talking with Andrew McGuire from Live from the Vault. He works with that Kinesis company over in the UK. Very smart guy. He basically said the same thing, but he kind of said like they could use a nuclear option on the United States without ever firing a missile or a ball. All they would have to do is revalue or go to a gold backed currency. At that point, that would destroy the United States. And think about this, like if those countries decide, which there's been a lot of speculation and indication that they are moving toward more gold backed, silver backed, commodity backed, backing their currency with real assets. Think about this. I'm not a historian, but I'm confident in saying that like after World War II, the United States, we kind of produced a lot of the ammunition and the goods that were used by the European countries to fight. We demanded that they pay us with gold because
Right.
we weren't sure that their currency was going to be worth anything. And I believe the same thing happened during World War One. Like we demanded that they pay us with gold because we weren't sure that their currency was going to be worth anything. What if those countries do the same thing to us? What if we get to a point where China, Saudi Arabia, Russia, all the BRICS, will just, all 10 of the BRICS get to a point where they're like, hey, America, we are using a currency now that is backed by a real asset and is tethered to something real. And we're over, in America saying, well, we've got paper money. We've got paper money. Look, the dollar. And they say, that's great. But if you want anything from us, it has to be in the form of gold, or it has to be in the form of some type of money, real money that's backed by, like they could force us to revalue gold. Does that make sense?
And maybe that's the best thing for everybody, really.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Then the whole
maybe it's the best thing for the United States to join BRICS. But is BRICS going to let us in? I don't think so. They've had enough of it, Ron.
Yep, they've had enough of it. All right. Well, that I think we just had a fascinating conversation. And it's going to get more interesting here because I want to briefly touch on GDP, PCE, and BTFP. Okay. Three
Whatever
quick
that means.
acronyms. Yeah, well, GDP. We had a unbelievable, great GDP numbers for the fourth quarter. Imagine that right before we get into this big election cycle. The economy's doing great. I just want to point out a big portion of the growth in that GDP economic number was from recreational vehicle sales and coin shop. Chris and I will be going on a recreational vehicle trip around the United States and Canada, and we may even float it across the ocean to visit you when the price of silver gets to $85. We're going to ask our channel sponsor, Pimbex, at that point to help sponsor our gold and silver painted RV. But if you want to get your hands on some silver, gold, or platinum right now, go check out Pimbex. I think they check all the boxes. They have the greatest prices, the best prices, great service and selection. Chris, GDP, RVs, hey, that's awesome. PCE, we got, the Fed's controlling inflation, right? Oh, the inflation's under control. Well, in the Fed's favorite inflation metric or measurement stick is this PCE, the personal consumption expenditures that came out yesterday. Did you know that the PCE index, it eliminates, it takes out the cost of energy and food? What's up with that?
The two highest cost things that we pay for, Ron.
Yeah.
And it probably takes out housing too. It probably takes out rent in a mortgage payment. You know, the numbers are flawed. We all know that. You know, they have replaced the core CPI from beef to chicken, Ron. And they just, they move their little chess pieces around their checkerboard. They're not even playing on a chessboard. They're playing on a checkerboard with chess pieces. And they're just moving them here and here to see what makes them look better, and that's all they're doing.
Yeah. We're going to move on here in 1 second to the numbers, guys. We have some fascinating numbers regarding why you may be paying up to 10% more for your silver and gold. But I want to touch on one thing about this GDP. One final thing, because I think this is sad and hilarious at the same time. Basically, Chris, I want to ask you a question. If you went to Home Depot and bought $25,000 worth of building supplies, you were going to add on to your house. Okay, so you buy $25,000 worth of building supplies, and you put it on your Home Depot credit card. Okay, then you do all your work, you get it all done. And you call the realtor over and you say, look what I did. I put this addition on my house. I worked so hard. I did all this work. And I bought $25,000 worth of supplies at Home Depot. And that realtor tells you, and you say, well, how much value did I add to my house? And that realtor says, about $10,000. So now you spent $25,000 that you're going to owe. You have debt and you're going to have to be paying interest on, but you only added $10,000 worth of value. Do you think that would be a smart move?
Absolutely not. But how do you know that until you do it? And normally when you spend 25,000, you can almost double that.
Right. Good. Okay. Great point. The reason I told that story is because that's what the U.S. economy did in the fourth quarter. These unbelievable GDP numbers. Okay. Here, I have it. Hold on a second. Hold on.
But we also had Christmas spending too.
No, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Here's a chart right here. Here's the amount that the U.S. GDP grew during the fourth quarter. $328 billion. This is the total amount of debt. This is the deficit increase, and that's the total amount of debt increase. Okay, that was $2.55 in debt increase to only get $1 worth of GDP growth. We're in a position where we're in a spiral. That's what I was trying to demonstrate, that we're spending it's taking $2.55 worth of new debt to get $1 worth of GDP growth. That's like going and spending 25 grand on building supplies and only adding 10,000 in value. And it's a spiral situation, right? And all that growth in debt that we had, it is going to make this, it's going to exacerbate the situation as we move forward. So this whole idea that, oh, the economy, it's all smoke and mirrors. I'll be quiet. Let's talk about paying too much for silver, too much for gold. People who are forced, people who live in certain states. Do you live in one of the states where you're forced to pay sales tax? Chris has some data for us. You want to run through that?
Ron, this was a very hard list to put together because after some research online, different websites, you type in what sales tax is for different states, and there's different websites come up. So I mean, and everybody seemed to have a little bit of different numbers. So I'm going to do the best as I can. If you live in one of these states, please correct us. We would like to get the right information out to everybody. But I'm finding Hawaii. If you live in Hawaii, the dealer pays the sales tax. In Kentucky, there's a 6% across the board on everything. State of Maine is also 6%. New Jersey is 7%. New Mexico, I'm seeing based on what's sold. So I don't have a percentage on New Mexico. Vermont is also 6%. Washington, D.C., of course, they could have tax. I don't have a percentage on them. And I found one website saying it's Wisconsin too, and I don't have a percentage on them. Now, the states that have a minimum threshold, California used to be, Ron, $1,500. California recently upped their game to $2,000. So that means you have to spend $2,000 on silver or gold before it comes tax-free. Connecticut had the same kind of threshold, but they are $1,000 threshold. State of Florida, it's only on foreign silver and gold. So Canadian, Britannia's, Australian. Fourth, anything else is $500, then it becomes tax-free. State of Maryland, anything less than $1,000 is taxed. Massachusetts, $1,000 or less is taxed. In New York, $1,000 or less is taxed. So you got to be over these thresholds to get your tax exempt.
Yeah, yeah. It's a sad.
It's sad. I mean, California went the wrong way with that.
Yeah, it's a tragedy that people would be taxed on converting one form of money to another. I always like to use the example, it'd be like going to your bank with $100 bill saying I want 5 $20 bills, and them telling you, well, that's going to cost you $108. Give us $108 dollars and we'll give you those 5 20s, because silver and gold were money long before fiat was. What about so people can't necessarily control, I mean, they could go to neighboring states or whatever, but what you can control is the price you pay for the silver that you have. Did you do any comparison shopping for us this week, Chris?
Before we get to that, yes, Ron, I would like to make one point about that, going to neighboring state. If you're going to do that, I would recommend to bring cash, because so your state don't know that you went out of state, because states are starting to watch all this. And, you go out of state and they will know what you bought, basically, by putting on the credit card. So if you want to go underneath the radar, use cash. So, yes, I did some comparing shopping, Ron, this week. We're going to talk about this week 2024 silver maples in the tube, Ron. And there's 25 in the tube.
Okay.
So I went over to Money Metals, Ron. They were $717 for 225. Silver Golden Bowl was $709 even. BGASC was $704.75. AtMax had a sale on, okay, a sale price of $699.75. JM Bullion also had a determined sale price of $674.75. SD Bowen came in at $674.25. Hill Bowen came in at $665. At our sponsor Pinbacks had them at $663.25. That's a savings of $53.75. I would also like to note at this time, Ron, that is a kind of a pre-order. Pinbacks does not expect them to have them in until February 9th at this time.
Okay. Okay. But from the highest price to the lowest price on one tube of Canadian 2024 Canadian maples, in which there's 25 coins in each tube, it was over a $50 difference. So in theory, when comparing Pembex to the highest priced of the group that you just showed, a person could order that tube, the same exact tube of maples, but get themselves 2 additional maples basically for free. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I would also like to point out, Pembex beats ATMEX and JM Bullions so-called sale price.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
Point that out again.
And I want to point out that when you do this comparison shopping, you do it on the same day at the same time, and you're comparing the cash price for the same number of coins, right, for the tube. So we are comparing maples to maples.
Pretty much, yes. That's what we're doing. And, and this is not a call out to, rag these other companies, but really, we all need to shop around. I mean, $53.75 difference. I mean, that's, you want to go pay more at Money Metals? You want to go pay more at Silver, Gold?
Well, let me ask you a question, Chris. If I call you up an hour from now and say, hey, Chris, I'm going to come by your house and bring you a tube of 25 Canadian maples that I will sell you for $580. I'm just using $580. and I show up at your house and I say, here's your tube of maples. And then I have 2 additional coins and I say, do you want these as well? I mean, wouldn't you take them?
I would say, yeah, I'll give you the difference for them. Oh, yeah. At that price, yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, so why not? I think we're doing a great service to the stacking community. What about the 30-day numbers, my friend?
30-day numbers. Okay. 30-day numbers, Ron. Silver was in a hole this past 30 days, down $1.50 or down 6.13%. Gold was down $51.60 or down 2.49%. Platinum was down $60.70 or down 6.81%. Bitcoin was down $627.67 or down 1.48%. And I've always, on the oil run, we have to watch oil because everything revolves around oil. Oil was up $2.66 a barrel or up 3.52%, Ron.
Wow.
Wow. Just a few weeks ago, we were talking oil being down. Now, what I like to make out of this, Ron, when we had lower oil prices, silver, gold, platinum were all higher. Yeah, oil's up, but why are the metals down?
Well,
that makes no sense.
And oil is the lifeblood of the world economy. It's the biggest traded commodity in the world. And it's also, I want to just touch on this because I think it's critical that silver and gold investors understand this idea that right now, one barrel of oil costs about 1 gram of gold. A gram of gold is about 1/30th of an ounce. So roughly, 1 gram of gold's, let's say $70, and a barrel of oil, we'll say $70. There's this idea that the BRICS countries, and I think Zoltan Pulsar is the one who initially floated this idea, and this is being talked about, that the BRICS countries could get to a point where they say, you know what, we're going to reprice oil in gold terms. We're now, instead of getting 1-for-1 for 1 gram of gold, you now get 2 barrels of oil. But since oil is such a bigger a commodity like 10 times the size of the gold market, that would essentially make the value of gold pretty much double overnight. That's an idea that's been floated out there, and part of that, like, de-dollarization, war on the dollar. I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen, but it does make sense. And if it does happen, we could see that's a great example of what we talked about earlier, where you get the BRICS countries that kind of are coming together and working together and have made it very explicitly clear that they want to move away from the dollar. That's the type of scenario that could possibly unfold.
And absolutely, Ron. I just got two more points. I know we covered this already, but again, so everybody knows silver to gold ratio is 88.13. And I got one question for you, Ron, and we can wrap this up, I guess. I just noticed this, Ron, on the U.S. debt clock, your portion of the interest, if you're an adult in the United States, what do you think your portion is, and everybody's portion is, just the interest alone on the debt?
Interest on an annual basis, or
on as we sit right now, roughly sit right now? What would you? What
I
would
don't
you
know,
guess?
15,000.
You're pretty close, Ron. It's $16,595. I like to just ask how many people out there really have $16,595 sitting in
Yeah.
their bank account. Not many of us, because
Yeah.
I know I don't. I mean,
We don't want to be doom and gloomers, but we want to be risk assessors. And it feels like we're in a very risky situation where we are in a debt spiral, or we're very close to a debt spiral in this country. And there's absolutely no interest in, addressing it from a political perspective.
absolutely.
Well, Chris, thank you on behalf of our viewer, right? I know you're the most important guy in the world. I'm the second most, but the viewer is also the most important. There is no Ron's Basement. There is no Ron and Coin Shop Chris without this viewer. So thank you to our viewer for joining us. If you've enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to the channel. That's free. We don't charge for any of the content. We always love when we get super chats. And if you want to help support Coin Shop Chris, he does these videos out of the kindness of his heart. His PayPal link is in the description of this video, and I will also put it in a pinned comment. Chris, we'll look forward to talking to you next week.
I'll see you next week. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we catch you all next week.